listening to Lori Vallow Daybell, Chad Daybell, and Mr. Franke, the estranged husband of Ruby Franke. Let's get started with Miss Lori Vallow. She has been extradited to Arizona. Thank you for joining me.
We're told that Vallow is at the Estrella jail in Phoenix, and she is awaiting her next hearing for these additional murder charges here. And this comes after she was sentenced 4 months ago to life in prison after her 2 kids were found buried in her husband's backyard. The infamous doomsday mom, Lori Vallow, is back in Arizona tonight. New video shows her arriving in Phoenix after MCSO extradited her from Idaho, where she's facing life in prison for killing her 2 kids, JJ and Tylee, and conspiring to kill her husband's late wife.
You're being charged in that case with 1 count of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder.
Vallow was in court this morning facing additional murder charges in Arizona. MCSO Sheriff Paul Penzone said it took 4 days to get Vallow back to the valley, opting to drive instead of fly because of weather conditions.
We had challenging weather conditions. The last thing we wanted to do was try to fly, get stuck at an airport where suddenly now we're in a space where there's a lot of community members.
Prosecutors say Vallow conspired with her brother Alex Cox to murder her then husband Charles Vallow in 2019. Investigators believe they killed him so Lori could marry her now husband Chad Daybell and get $1 million in life insurance money. She's also accused of scheming to kill her niece's ex-husband. Detectives say Cox shot at him, but missed.
I know that the devastation that's been left in the trail.
In July, Vallow was found guilty for the murders of her 2 kids, JJ and Tylee, and Daybell's first wife, Tammy Daybell. Vallow's 2 kids were found buried in the back of Chad Daybell's home.
From one human to another, my heart breaks for them. Anybody who suffered loss at the hands of an evil person like this, and I pray that they'll find peace.
And Vallow is being held without bond in isolation because she's deemed high security. Her next court appearance here is scheduled for December 7th. Certainly a story we will be covering, Nicole.
All right, everybody. That's my Lori Vallow Daybell update. Accused of conspiring to kill her husband, 4th husband, Charles, with her brother, late brother, Alex Cox. She's in high security, isolation, so that means she will not be mingling with other inmates. It's a very tragic tale, and I passed a photo earlier before going live where they were showing pictures of her and I believe some other people were in a group photo. And when you look at the picture, you would assume everybody in the picture is happy, getting along, and Christians. But then you fast forward to now and what has happened with Lori and Chad and her late brother and the deaths of all these people, her children, Tammy, the attempted shooting of the nephew at the time, her niece's husband, then husband. You realize you don't know people. And that's the gist of the story pertaining to Lori and Chad and the late brother, Alex. You don't know people. You're walking by people, speaking to people, laughing with people, talking to people, sitting beside them at work, church, wherever. You're listening to their conversations and you're thinking they're great people. Even her own son, said, she was a good mother raising him. Of course, they moved around a lot, but she was a good mother to him. So one would wonder what in the hell happened. I do believe she has mental issues. I do believe she has a mental problem. I believe she's very delusional. These things have come out by her own family members before this atrocity of killing the children and Tammy and shooting at the nephew-in-law. She was delusional beforehand. And perhaps maybe people who knew her from the outside, such as church members, friends, or whomever, they didn't really notice she was this jacked up inside. But the mother had already spoken publicly that she was, seeing things, claiming to have been visited by people from the Bible and this and that, and religious figures visiting her. So that shows that there's always been something wrong with her, maybe not visible to others. Please go to my community board. You can see the video of her being extradited, them booking her in, going through the screening process, being checked through the machine, where she has to raise her arms and everything, and they check her for weapons and so on and so forth. and she's giddy, smiling. As you hear the sheriff speaking, he gave a press conference and he said she was chatty the entire ride. It was an 18-hour ride to Arizona. It's a very long ride. As you hear, they didn't want to fly because of weather issues. But naturally, she would be talking. It's a long ride. At some point, a person would break down and talk about something. May not be any relevance to the case or other cases, but he said she was chatty. So reporters asked what did she say, talk about? He said, well, you'll have to wait to hear from the district attorney on that issue of what she discussed during that 18-hour ride. What did she discuss? What did she talk about? Did she talk about her life, being a mother? Did she talk about her husband? Did she talk about the last trial? Did she talk about being innocent in that last trial pertaining to Tammy and her children? And did she also talk about this upcoming trial, that she's innocent, killing her husband and the attempted shooting, murder of the nephew-in-law, former nephew-in-law? I don't know. We will see what will be revealed pertaining to Lori. But it's a sad case because it's just exemplary of not knowing people. And it's expected. You can't know everything about a person, their inner thoughts, their inner feelings. People covet. People don't readily express what they really think of people, what they really think of their family, their children. Hey, yeah, I hate my husband. Yeah, I want to get rid of him. Yeah, I want to kill him. Yeah, I hate my kids. I want to get rid of them. Hey, I believe in this doomsday bullshit, and I want to, knock everybody off to be with this guy. Very interesting information. Now let's talk about Mr. Chad. A judge has ruled that cameras will be allowed in his upcoming trial. He fought for the cameras, he and his attorneys, and he got his wish. So there will be cameras in the courtroom, which I am glad, because as I told you before in my live from the other day pertaining to Rex Heuermann and his wife, when he went to court, there was a discrepancy about if he smiled at his wife, Asa, or not, because they say she smiled at him. Now a report is saying he smiled back. Well, see, the first report I got said he looked at the last minute before exiting the courtroom and then walked out. This is a report that he didn't even smile, wave, blow a kiss or anything. Now this next report says he did smile at his wife, Asa. So see, this is why there should be cameras in the courtroom, because I don't want a reporter coming back telling me what he or she thought they saw, witness. Let me see for myself. And I think many people would like to see for themselves. You want to see the defendant. You want to see their behavior. You want to see how they're interacting with their attorney. You want to see if they're looking over their shoulder, looking at the gallery, at the witnesses, the people participating in court, family members, their interaction with the judge, how they're sitting. Are they awake? Are they falling asleep? Are they taking notes, allegedly taking notes? Those are the things you want to see, so you can get a general idea for yourself. And that's the one thing these judges need to understand as far as saying, well, I don't want the cameras in the court because of this, and this, such as with the Korberger case. We are entitled to our opinion. We're entitled to voice our opinion. And I don't have to believe everything that the news reports. I don't have to believe the versions coming from friends, associates, co-workers. That is the reason why we have a free mind, and we're entitled to see things as we see them, as we hear them. Because what I see and hear, you may not hear and see. This is why we want cameras in the court, some of us. I don't want a rendering of the suspect, sketches of the suspect. That means nothing to me. Let me see the person. Let me see how he or she is interacting. Especially if the person decides they want to testify. Most definitely, people are going to want to see how they act, how they talk. Do they stutter? Do they pause a lot in giving their testimony? I don't want to hear that from a reporter. I want to see it for myself. So I think the cameras should be allowed. They've been allowed for some time now in courtrooms, and I feel like what's the point in stopping the process of having media in the courtroom? Because they're not going to just sit and fixate on the defendant. Naturally, they have to show the defense attorneys, state attorneys, while they're giving their statements. They're not going to sit and just zoom in on the judge. going to show everybody except for the jury. And I think cameras should be allowed. So that's the latest update pertaining to Chad Daybell. A judge has ruled that cameras can be allowed in his upcoming trial. Once again, Lori Daybell, she has been extradited to Arizona for the conspiracy murder charge of her fourth husband, Charles, and also the attempt on nephew-in-law, Mr. Boudreaux. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $DeAngie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during stream. Please check my community board for said updates and movie suggestions, because I do have some movie suggestions that I have put on there, because I believe I did not put one up for the week of Thanksgiving, and I wanted to share with you all some of my suggestions. Hope you enjoy them. I'm going to give you a quick rendering right fast of what I've put up there, so you can have something to watch tonight and this weekend if you like to, if you don't have any plans to go anywhere or do anything. 1 second and get that information up here for you. Thank you all so much for joining me. My last commentary is going to be pertaining to Kevin Franke. More mess. More mess. One second. Okay. Pull this up for you guys. And there's also new information just uploaded 14 minutes ago. Gilgo Beach suspect cheek swab matches DNA found on one of the victims. This is just an update pertaining to how they came about getting the DNA to link Rex Heuermann to the ladies that were found at Gilgo Beach. They took a swab from his wife when he was asked about these crimes. So many of you are probably curious to the process. As you see, they give you a little bit of information every few months pertaining to this storyline. It was a cheek swab from Asa. And that DNA from the cheek swab matched DNA found on one of the burlap wraps that encased one of the victims. Very interesting information. And as most of you have heard, it was hair belonging to Asa Ellerup that linked Rex Heuermann to those crimes. My first movie suggestion is Below the Fold. I finally finished the movie late last night. I had been attempting to watch this movie for about 3 times, and every time I watch it, I fall asleep for some crazy reason. So finally, I was able to finish it. It's a very good movie. If I didn't know any better, I think it was based on a true story, but it's a very good movie. The setting is set in Maryville, Missouri. Don't know if that's an actual place or not, but anyway, it starts off there, and it's a very good story about a missing girl, and then it takes you into another story of another missing young girl, and 2 reporters reporting the story in this small rural area. Very good movie, Below the Fold. My second suggestion is The Pact. And it's just a movie about 2 sisters who reluctantly return to their childhood home when their mother passes away. And I guess they're going back to pay their respects, and I'm sure that they go on to find some not so great things in that storyline. So we have The Pact and Below the Fold. Each are on my community board if you need updates pertaining to that said information. There was a story I found yesterday. It's an older story out of Georgia, Gwinnett County, and it just baffled me because lately I've been watching true crime more than ever. Naturally, I watch it even going to sleep, and I fall asleep to it at night. And I used to not watch TV when I knew I was sleeping going to bed, but now it seems like I need the noise to go to sleep, which is so strange because 20 years ago, I would never have the TV on if I knew I was going to bed. But 48 hours did a special called Solve This Case, Who Killed Kay Winham? Please check that out. I have that posted to my community board. It's a very interesting story of an older lady, about 60 years of age, Caucasian, was living a well-to-do life, married to an older gentleman, and one day she is brutally stabbed in her home down in Georgia, and a suspect has not, I repeat, has not been identified. And I find this case very baffling, because when you start going into the 8-9 year mark of a crime, you're saying to yourself, my goodness, they don't have a suspect. A neighbor reports a strange looking guy in the neighborhood walking around, lurking about. You will see that rendering when you watch the 48-hour special. But so far, there have been no arrests. So what you have to ask yourself, who is this person? Is this somebody that knew her? Because they believe she let the perpetrator in the house. So who is this guy that killed her? Or was it a female? They believe the profiler, a well-known profiler, believes it was a male because of the viciousness of the crime. But the one part of the story that they get to near the end that is very baffling is that a pasted note was sent to the police department about her, a not so nice letter. And it was cutouts of letters, you know, like in a magazine, you cut the letters out and you make a sentence. It's a very creepy letter. And basically it was bashing her, what type of woman she was. And I think basically they were saying she was just ungrateful. They didn't read the letter in its entirety. The profiler believes a woman sent that. So they believe this might be a tag team, a duo who may have killed this lady. You'll hear all types of things about her husband, that he was into fraudulent business. He was allegedly a millionaire. But when you start dissecting the storyline and his lifestyle, I don't think he had the assets that he claimed he had. And this lady obviously was not happy with the house she was living in. And that was mentioned in that letter. So that means the victim told somebody about her unhappiness at this house. Now, maybe the house wasn't big enough for her. You know, it's a nice sized house. It's a house bigger than what most people have. So her assumption may have been, well, this man's supposed to be wealthy, well off. I want a bigger home. Maybe she didn't like where the home was located. I don't know. But that's what was in the letter. And I think the person was saying she was ungrateful. She didn't deserve him. So that sounds like something a woman would say. That's why the profiler believes this is a two-party of killers or involvement, let's say. They throw in the friend. Some people say she wasn't her best friend. I don't know. They've asked the lady, was she involved? She says no. And she also declined to do an interview in 48 hours for some reason. And most will wonder why. Why not? This is your friend. This is your best friend. Allegedly, why would you not want to do an interview? But when I looked at a few of the wordings of the letter, it would appear possibly a woman too. Usually psycho men would do the pastics of the cutting out of the letters. People who do things like bombings, they like to send police department and, you know, things like that. But somewhere in my mind, I'm kind of leaning towards it. Maybe this was a woman that sent the letter. I was thinking perhaps maybe it was the husband. He was in over his head. He was being sued by people. He knew he didn't have the attention from his wife, perhaps, that he wanted and desired. She was arm candy. You'll hear that a lot during that segment. So maybe he decided to kill his wife. Maybe he had help. I don't know. But check it out. Who killed Kay Winham? 48 hours. And also check out Nancy Grace's last podcast pertaining to Asa Ellerup and the $1 million Peacock deal. As I also told you the other day, Alex Murdaugh has been given a 27-year sentence for financial fraud. And I also have many polls posted to my community board pertaining to Derek Chauvin, Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey. Please take those polls. Let's get to my third subject matter, which is Kevin Franke. As you know, his wife and Miss Hildebrand are still incarcerated. I have not got any information pertaining to the status of the children, if they're still in foster care. And I'm sure many of you have a lot of commentary pertaining to where the children should go and whose custody the children should be in. Frankly, I do not believe either parent should have custody of the children because Mr. Franke was gone from the house for a whole year. And in a whole year, anything can happen in a relationship, emotions toward another human being. And that shows me that if you can stay away from your children a whole year and you live in the same jurisdiction, you, to me, would be devoid of emotion because you can't logically explain that to your children, your wife, a judge, a social worker, why you would be out of the household, not divorced from the wife, not seeing the children, video chatting, Skyping, nothing. Why not? Let's get to this information pertaining to Kevin Franke, everybody. Thank you for joining me.
The name Franke. That is, of course, that name has been in the news for a long time. A lot of people have been following it. Today, Kevin Franke filed for divorce from his wife, Ruby Franke, YouTuber. She's got millions of followers. A quick recap, Ruby was arrested in August on alleged aggravated child abuse. Ruby and Kevin's kids, two of them, were found in Jody Hildebrand's house in Ivins in southern Utah. Ruby and Kevin lived in Utah County. Though they've had marital problems before these charges came up, they haven't apparently been living together for the last little while. So today we discovered Kevin filed for divorce and also a domestic relations injunction that allows restrictions for both sides, that they're peaceful, basically that they're not going to be harassing each other. And of course, all this happening as Ruby Franke has been in jail in southern Utah, in Purgatory, the name of the jail there, for the last almost 3 months.
Yeah, time has flown because there haven't been any court dates set since I think the last time we saw both Ruby and Jody were their initial appearance, and that was on, I think, the 15th of September. So a lot has changed, but not a lot has changed as to what we know for the actual charges at play here. We've seen things play out in juvenile court as it comes to a kind of a custody battle, right, over children. That was since sealed by the court, as it should be, to protect the children and the family. And then this comes out today. I think we were maybe expecting this, given the hostility that kind of comes across between the Frankes and the situation. And we'll see how the actual court process plays out for the charges that a lot of us have been covering since day one.
Yeah, I think some people that just had a little bit of knowledge about the case may have been surprised that this wasn't already in the works.
Right. Because, as you know, you mentioned that they did not live together. And we even heard that when Springville police went back to the home the day after, when the oldest daughter, Sherry, wanted to go get some of her belongings. They went there to make sure Kevin wasn't there. And they even acknowledged to Kevin when he picked up those items that were returned back, hey, you haven't been living in the home for about a year. So all of this, I guess, was unexpectedly expected. It is.
I mean, especially for the kids, the younger children to have to watch all of this play out, and who knows what they've seen behind closed doors as well. So this is just really sad.
Yeah, more will likely come out. Of course, what little we've seen in the juvenile and custody proceedings, certainly seem to be some acrimony there. So we'll see what happens next.
I did hear from Ruby Franke's attorney today. They are expecting to release a statement of some sort in the coming.
All right, everybody. Release statements. Ruby Franke, her attorneys. So, what will they have to say on behalf of their client? What is it that you're going to tell the public pertaining to Ruby Franke and this filing of divorce? As you heard here in this commentary, Mr. Franke had not been living in the house. So when there was that shuffle of what was missing from the house, he accusing the daughter, the eldest child, of taking things that didn't belong to her, stealing, basically. Theft is what he accused her of. Then his lawyer saying, oh, no, everything's fine. They're getting along. Well, that's not what the police report says. That's not even what it says on the body cam of the day he was trying to get. They were wrangling back and forth about what was taken from the house and him wanting something done to the daughter. That's all on a body cam of his interaction with the police. And it didn't sound like he was in favor of his own child. And as you hear here, What problem would you have with your daughter getting things out of the house you haven't even been around? Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. You haven't even been around your family. You haven't been around your children. And as this lady says here in this commentary, it's a big mess. Indeed, it's a mess because the children are in the care of someone other than their parents. Do not know whom. Naturally, it's going to be private information because you're dealing with minors. But this man had not been around his wife for whatever reason. And it's easy to use an attorney as a mouthpiece and say, oh, yeah, well, he wasn't there because of what the wife said she wanted. And her friend, Ms. Hildebrandt, said they don't need to be together, or he didn't need to be there. They need to separate. In the end, Kevin is married to Ruby. Ruby is married to Kevin. There should not have been any interference of any outsiders. Who you allow to interfere in your business, that's on you. And any party who is not in agreement to outsiders intervening or their spouse allowing someone to intervene, you should be taking that information up, conversation with your spouse. Hey, I don't believe this person needs to be in our business. I don't want them in our business. I don't want you telling them our business. And I don't want to hear anything they have to say, and I'm not going to listen. When I learned all this business of Hildebrandt was staying in the house at one point, living on the other side of the house, I found that very strange. And as I told you, I believe the relationship between she and Ruby is strange, and it may be of a personal sexual nature. Because once you hear that information that she was staying in their house before he ended up leaving the house and going living somewhere else, it shows you this was a grand setup to get rid of Kevin, and somehow he fell for it. And that shows me he did not wear the pants in the family. He didn't have a say of anything in the family, because there's no way I would agree as a man to have a counselor, therapist, life coach living in my house. For what reason? If I want to use you as a therapist, I can go see you personally in your office, your home, wherever your business is, or I can invite you here to my house and I talk to you personally with my wife or without my wife. Why would I have you live in my house? So I found that strange once that information was released. Why is this woman living in her house? So you go from finding out she was living in a house, then he's booted out of the house from recommendation from Hildebrandt, allegedly. Oh, you two need to separate. He's not healthy for you, blah, blah, blah. He wants to blame Hildebrandt as the orchestrator of the demise of his relationship. No, you are your worst enemy. Because you allowed this woman to, one, come in and intervene. You had to see the signs that something was not kosher between she and your wife. She's living in your house. Why would you stand for that? See, that makes no sense to me. And that's not even including all the allegations of abuse of the children, the YouTube videos, the wife stopping the YouTube videos, then starting them back. Her relationship with this woman, getting in with this Connections podcast or company. We learned that she isn't licensed in anything. Ruby, just exercise expert. It's all felonious. And the thing that bothers me, I think, the most about this story, besides Mr. Franke just leaving his family under instructions from Hildebrandt, is that this Connections group is supposed to be focusing on a better you, living your best life, making better decisions in dealing with people. Frankly, Hildebrandt was just using the Connections company, podcast, website, or whatever to vent her own frustrations toward the world, her frustrations toward children, her frustrations toward men. I could see it just in listening to her commentary. Basically telling you, I believe, hell, be selfish. You deserve to be selfish in your dealings with people. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that, because in the end, you do need to look out for yourself. But I believe she was talking to the masses because she was mad at the world and bitter herself. Whatever went on with her and her husband, their jacked up relationship, she was projecting that in her dealings with her clients, I think that's obvious now. And the fact that you want to talk about connecting with others and being a better version of yourself, how can you be a better version? Teach people to be a better version of themselves. When you are abusing children, you're abusing your own niece and nephew. You abused this woman's children. One of the boys was emaciated that escaped, held hostage in a room, locked room, was able to get out by the grace of God. Common sense would tell anybody if a person is emaciated, it's only a matter of time their organs are going to fail. Their liver, their kidneys, their heart is going to stop. So death would have been imminent. And I think most of you have heard stories of people, children who have been starved to death. Elderly people who have been starved to death, put in a room, not taken care of, not having their diapers changed, not being bathed. That's exactly what was happening here. And if you are starving a child, one would use deduction. You also were not letting the child take a shower, not wash their hair. So I won't doubt that we'll hear later down the road, the little boy had cooties, because it all goes hand in hand. If you're not doing one thing, you're not doing another. So he probably didn't have access to a television, social media, games, bath water, restroom, food. And yet you're the same person, you and Miss Ruby, trying to preach to the world how to be better people, how to be a better self, when you both have been cruel to other people and children especially. How in the world could you be an example to teach others how to be a better person? And you're holding children hostage in a house, leaving children alone unattended. Neighbors testify to that in their public commentary to the news reporters. And I'm sure we're going to hear much worse down the road pertaining to Ruby and Hildebrandt. As for the father, I have no respect for him as a person, because to me, he's not a leader. He's not a role model. He's not a mentor. He didn't give a damn about his children. He didn't give a damn about his wife. I don't really care what the hell was going on with Ruby mentally, because it's obvious she has some type of mental problems. But before all this got out to the masses and to the public, he was a married man and he had children. And he let another outsider dictate his thought process as far as how to deal with his wife and his children. And that to me shows he's not a leader. He's not a husband. And therefore he doesn't have any rights to his children. Because as you heard in his commentary, the man was gone from the house a whole year. Anything could have been gone missing from the house in a year. The children were in different locations, as you heard when the news broke, of the boy escaping out of the South Utah house. Okay, so you don't know what's been going on in your house. Your name may have been on the deed. You own the house with your wife. You're still paying a mortgage on the house if the house wasn't paid for. But you had no idea if the lawn was being cut, if the bills were being paid. You have to ask all those questions as well. Were the bills being paid? What was she doing with the money she got from her husband? How much income was she generating with this connections group and any other entities? Did she even have food in the house for the children? Because she had to eat. What was really going on in that house? And as this lady says here in this news segment, this is just a big old mess, and you really don't know what was going on behind closed doors with these children. And I think this is a prime example of severe abuse, because if you can abuse children physically with leg, arm restraints, starvation, you also had a vile tongue. And it doesn't matter if you use profanity or not. There's no way I believe that they were not verbally abusive to the children. Ruby, Kevin, and this Hildebrandt lady. What you're seeing with this case here, the Franke's, Hildebrandt, the Daybells. It's what has been going on for centuries. Sick people rearing children, sick people being married in relationships, sick people spewing out venom and crazy talk and gathering up people to ride the ride along with them. You can call it a cult. You can call it the cult. But it's just a Jim Jones syndrome. That's all this is. Sick, demented narcissists out looking for victims, prey to bring into the fold, to idolize them and worship them, give them their worldly goods and their brains for experimentation. That's all this is. And it happens everywhere, here in the United States, abroad. People falling under the spell of others. And that's what man has been doing since taking the apple from the tree. Doing what he wants to do. Wanting a following, wanting to be loved, wanting to be idolized, wanting to be respected, wanting to be liked, and willing to do anything to get attention from others. That is what you see here. People who are just sick and vile, and they want attention from other people. So they'll do and say anything, lie, manipulate, steal, con, defraud to get attention. And these people are no different. You had the blind leading the blind. A jacked up couple with probably jacked up ideologies and religious beliefs, spewing all type of crazy nonsense on YouTube, making people think they had this great life when they didn't. People started noticing things that wasn't right. People drew up a petition. State got called. Nothing happened. But all along, the people were right. And that's the sad part of the story. It's that viewers watching their channel, her channel, their channel, whichever, realize something's not right here. And the state did nothing, as usual. Go investigate. Great looking house, great cars, great looking people, no criminal record. I don't see anything wrong. And then voila, years later, you have this scenario here. A little boy crawling out of a window trying to get food, water, and spins the story of being held hostage in a locked room. But all along, the state has investigated these people and found them to not be in any violations of abuse. But yet you have neighbors who tell you a different story of children being left alone, possibly wandering about. And then you have to ask yourself that as well. What did the neighbors see? Hildebrandt's neighbors, Ruby's neighbors. Because you got to remember, Ruby and Hildebrandt did not even live in the same jurisdiction. They lived hours away from one another. So what do the neighbors have to say in each location pertaining to the households, what they noticed? And one thing we know that they're going to say about Ruby's house, oh, well, we never saw Mr. Franke around. We never saw him coming and going, cutting the grass, checking the mailbox. Yeah. Because he was somewhere else living in another home, apartment, house, which I thought was just ridiculous. How in the world would you live near your own damn kids and never once check in on them, visit? All because this lady says, you all need to do this. You all need to separate. Okay, you separate from a person. That doesn't mean you have to stop talking to them just because you separated. People separate all the time that are married. But I would suspect at some point, somebody's going to call the other person just to say hello. How are you doing? How are you feeling? I miss you. I want to come back home. So did he ever call Ruby Franke when he left the house? Did she ever call him? Because the understanding is that they never talked. And the fact that he would even accuse his own daughter of stealing stuff out of the house when all this stuff blew up, that shows me there's something wrong with Kevin Franke as well. He's not wrapped tight either. Because you have the audacity to accuse somebody of stealing something out of the house when this girl is trying to get things out of the house for the kids, and whatever she took out of there, I don't think many people would care at this point. You haven't heard many people talking bad about the daughter stealing anything out of the house. I don't think people care, because what they're focusing on is those kids and what they went through, and the fact that you weren't even there for an entire year. And the only thing you could think to do is cry and moan to the police about your daughter stealing some items, passports or whatever, electronic items out of the house. Maybe she had a reason for taking those items. Because I believe, as I said, there's way more to this story. And I do believe that's why the daughter took certain items out. She had a reason. And I don't think we have to go into discussion of what those reasons were. Possibly evidentiary material against both parents. But see, this shows you his focus. He's worried about some minuscule BS, and his children are in foster care with strangers. Wife's in jail. He hasn't been around in a year, and his only concern are digital items being removed from the house. Now, you think about that for just a second. So if that's your only focus, and the world is watching you, and your wife's in jail, mind you, with her girlfriend, yeah, I'm going to say that, her girlfriend, her play partner, you're only concerned about some damn iPads and things like that being removed. That shows me you never cared for your children, and you didn't care for your wife either. Because those things should have never been on your mind due to the circumstances. And this shows you there was something wrong with Ruby and Kevin in the child rearing department. And frankly, if you can't rear children in a decent manner, wholesome manner, caring manner, you definitely can't be of any use to another person as a spouse or in a relationship. Because some people believe that. You could be a horrible husband, but a great father. But I heard a woman once say, it might have been Susie Orman, saying, well, how is that possible? Hell, maybe even Dr. Phil. How are you going to be a horrible husband or wife, but then be a great parent? You want to be mischievous in this department, mistreating your wife, your spouse, whomever, but then you want to be a doting parent to your children, but you all are a family unit. You're a package deal. So if you're disrespecting the mother, the father, how can you then go over here in this corner and love on your son and daughter and say, oh, I love my kids, they mean everything to me, but you're disrespectful to the parent, you're disrespecting the household, maybe with boozing, drinking, drugs, affairs, cheating, lying, defrauding, whatever you're doing that's wrong, it still affects your children at some point. Maybe the children don't know about your sins, but as the old saying says, your sins will find you out. And at some point, it will affect your children. And as this lady said in his news commentary, who knows what the children are hearing through social media, being scared of not knowing where they're going to sleep, if their parents are going to get back together, if they're going to ever get to go back in the house with their parents. And frankly, these people don't deserve their children. And I hope the children understand that these people are not a good fit for them. And that's the thing about children. Children are resilient. They can put up with a lot of garbage, put up with a lot of nonsense, a lot of abuse, and still love their parents, idolize their parents. And we learned that with the case in Florida with the boy in the box. Going to court, still speaking highly of a man who locked him in a garage in a room, in a private box in the garage. And that's deep. When a child who's been locked up for a month can still go in court and testify and say, yeah, I was a bad kid. I deserve this. And my father's a good man. You think about that for just a second. But yet when you talk to the other kids, they don't have too much nice things to say about that father. That they didn't know when he was going to pop off, jump off. And that's scary to me. Because then that shows you that it wasn't even a matter of preferential treatment. That once he waged war against this kid that allegedly was so bad that they had to lock in a box, they still was raging hell, the father raising hell, a raging bull with his other children. He didn't know how to turn off that anger. So you're walking around mad at one kid to where you leave the vicinity of that child, but now you're still raising hell. and you're inflicting that hell on your other kids and your wife. You can't come down. You're still at 100. So how are you beneficial to your children? You're not. And this is the same. It doesn't matter if a parent chooses which child to abuse, which child they favor over another child. A bad parent is a bad parent. Because what you have to tell yourself, if you will abuse one child, you can abuse all of your children. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App, Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome to the live stream. Thank you all so much for joining me. Hello, Pin 10, Sammy, and Lady Lolo. Thank you all so much for joining me. Happy holidays to everybody. Please be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of what you post to social media. Please make sure you keep your car doors locked. Do not leave your parcels and packages visible inside of your car. If you're going to be late night shopping, take somebody with you. And if you have to go home and drop off some of those packages and go back out to shop, I would recommend that you do that and not have a lot of items in your car or in your trunk. Don't dispose of your boxes outside at the garbage can so people don't know, they won't have an idea of what you have purchased and have an idea of what's inside of your house. Make sure you keep all your windows and doors locked and beware of gathering with people, because this is a time when people won't have their doors locked because people are coming and going out of the house visiting for the holidays. And this is the perfect time for somebody to enter into your home. Please be safe out there. Check my community board for said updates, polls, breaking news. Once again, Lori Vallow Daybell, extradited back to Arizona. You can see the video via the YouTube queue and my community page. Chad Daybell will get his wish to have cameras in his upcoming trial. And Ruby Franke obviously has received divorce papers from Mr. Kevin Franke. And they want this, or he wants this to be a civil situation between the two and not to have any harassment, which makes no sense to me. How is she going to harass you? I think that's a part of the injunction of the divorce decree, divorce papers. She can't harass you because she's locked up. She doesn't have access to anything to harass you. If she harassed you, she'd have to be using somebody else, Mr. Kevin. I think Mr. Kevin is very delusional. He's trying to make this appear as a civil matter, him divorcing her. And in the end, he and his wife are the biggest losers because at some point the children will move on. They'll have to adjust to their situation. I don't know what the judge is going to render down the road, but children are resilient, as I said. But these two are the biggest losers because they had a chance to build a life, a great life, and have a good life and family, and they chose not to. So they have nobody to blame but themselves, and that's how I feel about Ruby and Franke. And as far as Hildebrandt, she's straight garbage. She's a ringleader, orchestrator, and she doesn't have feelings for anybody but herself. And she doesn't care much about herself because she got herself looped up into this Kevin and Ruby Franke business and help abusing the children. So she doesn't care anything about herself either. They're all garbage to me. I have no respect for any of these people. And I'm praying that the judge does not give any of them custodial rights to the children. I'm praying that Hildebrandt and Ruby go have an extensive prison sentence. And I do not want Mr. Franke to have access to his children either. Even if he doesn't get custody, I don't think he deserves the right to see his children. If they want to see him, they can see him when they're 18 years of age to their own choosing. But he doesn't need to have any access to the kids. And that's my personal feelings about the Frankes and Hildebrandt and the kids. Thank you all so much for following this network. Like, share, subscribe, drop your comments below. Post your commentary to the said videos and the community posts, and also my movie suggestions for the weekend. Please enjoy. They are free in the YouTube queue. You don't even have to go into a streaming app to download the movies. They are free. Thank you so much. You all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.